I'm 54 years old, and for most of my life I did everything right. Or at least, that's what I thought. I married young, raised 2 boys, built a life of routines and responsibilities, and very little room for myself. I never chased wild dreams or took big chances. Love to me was always quiet and steady, not the kind that made your heart race or your knees go weak. But then something happened, something I never saw coming. I crossed a line I didn't even know was there, and in doing so, I discovered a part of myself I thought had been buried years ago. Please, don't make the same mistake I did. It all began on one of those hot spring afternoons when the air inside your blouse clings to your back, and even the boxes seem to sweat. I had just been assigned the dreaded task of cleaning out the back storage office. Corporate wanted to turn it into some lounge space or something equally unnecessary. As the office manager, the job fell to me. Of course, I didn't complain. That wasn't my way. I had my hair pulled back, sleeves rolled up, and was already halfway through the first stack of banker's boxes when I heard the knock on the doorframe. Need a hand? I turned, and there he was, Tyler, my boss's son. He was taller than I remembered, leaner, but broader in the shoulders. The last time I'd seen him, he'd just graduated from college, still baby-faced, all nervous energy and oversized suits. But now, standing there in jeans and a fitted gray t-shirt, sleeves hugging his arms, hair tousled from the wind, he didn't look like a boy anymore. I blinked. "Tyler, what are you doing here?" He grinned a little sheepish. "Dad told me to come in today, see the place again. Thought I'd stop by and say hello." I brushed dust off my hands. "Well, unless you've suddenly developed a fondness for lifting storage boxes, I'd suggest you stay far, far away from this room." He stepped inside anyway. "I don't mind," he said. "Honestly, I could use the distraction." "Mind if I help?" I should have said no. I'm not sure why I didn't, but something about the way he looked at me, curious, respectful, warm, made it hard to send him away. And the truth is, I was tired. I could use the help. "All right," I said with a mock glare, "but don't blame me if you regret it." He rolled up his sleeves, revealing strong, tanned forearms. I tried, truly tried, not to notice, but I did. We worked in companionable silence at first, side by side at the metal shelving unit. Every now and then our arms would brush as we lifted a box or reached for the same stack of files. Each accidental touch sent a small, strange ripple through me. Not desire, not yet, but awareness. Tyler told me stories about his recent job search, the startups he turned down, the uncertainty of which path to take. I listened, surprised by how open he was with me, how easy it was to respond with more than the polite surface-level talk I usually gave at the office. At some point, I sat on the floor sorting through a pile of old invoices, and he joined me. We ended up laughing about the absurdity of one old company memo, something about a holiday sweater contest gone wrong. I laughed so hard I had to wipe tears from my cheeks. "I've never seen you laugh like that," he said, watching me. And there it was, a pause, a shift in the air. I felt it. I think he did too. That was the moment I should have stood up, said something safe, changed the subject, maybe even ended the day. But instead I stayed seated, let the silence stretch. "I guess I haven't had a lot of reasons to lately," I said quietly. He didn't look away. "That's kind of sad." "I know." Another pause. He reached out slowly, gently, and picked a piece of packing tape off my arm. His fingers brushed against my skin, barely a touch, but it lingered in my body far longer than it should have, and in that small, quiet office, filled with old paper and sun-filtered dust, something stirred in me I hadn't felt in years. Not just attraction, but a sense of being seen. Like I mattered in a way that wasn't about my job or my responsibilities. It frightened me. I stood up quickly, brushing off my pants, my voice suddenly too loud. "All right, that's enough for today. Thank you for your help, Tyler. You really didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said, also standing. We didn't speak as we walked out together. I felt his eyes on me as I locked the door behind us, and as he turned to go, he said one more thing softly, almost like a question. "Do you ever let yourself rest, Sarah?" I didn't answer because I didn't know how to. The next morning I tried to shake it off. It was just a quiet moment, a shared laugh, a lingering touch, nothing more. Still, I found myself brushing my hair a little more carefully before work, picking out a blouse I hadn't worn in months, The soft blue one with the neckline that dipped just enough to be noticed, but not enough to be inappropriate. I told myself it was just coincidence, that I needed something lightweight for the heat, that it had nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with Tyler. But I knew better. When I walked into the office, the air felt different, like the walls themselves were aware of me in a new way. I busied myself with emails and budget reports, pretending to be absorbed. The last thing I needed was to feed into anything foolish. Then, just after noon, I heard his voice from down the hall. "Hey, is Sarah in her office?" My stomach did that ridiculous flip again. I hated that I didn't have control over that part of me anymore. I hadn't felt nervous like this since my 20s. He knocked once and stepped inside, holding 2 takeout cups. "Peace offering," he said with a smile, offering one of them. "I know you said you were swamped today, so I thought maybe you could use a break." "Tyler, you don't have to keep doing this," I said, though I accepted the coffee. "I know," he said simply, pulling a chair over. "But I want to. We talked for nearly an hour, not once about work." He asked about my son, my garden, the music I used to listen to. I told him about how I once played piano, but hadn't touched it in over a decade. He asked why, and I didn't have a good answer, only that life got busy, that somewhere along the way I stopped making time for beauty. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "That's a shame. You seem like someone who carries a lot of beauty in them." It stunned me. His words, sincere, no smirk, no innuendo, just a gentle recognition. It made my chest ache. Before he left, he turned to me and said, "If you ever decide to play again, I'd love to hear it." After he left, I stared at my screen for a long time, unable to focus. My reflection in the darkened monitor showed more than crow's feet and tired eyes. It showed a woman waking up to something again, something she thought had been buried. That weekend, I went to the old storage room again. Not for work, just to sort through what was left. Half-finished projects, abandoned plans, and memories of a younger me who once had more energy, more color. I didn't expect him to show up, but he did. He knocked lightly and stepped in with a smile, holding a small bag. "Thought I might find you here," he said. "Brought lunch." We sat cross-legged on the floor, sharing sandwiches from a deli downtown. It felt easy, comfortable. "Can I ask you something?" he said, after a while. I nodded. "Do you ever feel like your life became someone else's story? Like you followed the script so well, you forgot to write your own?" His words hit me like a wave. "Yes," I whispered. "I think that's why I haven't settled yet," he said, picking at his sandwich wrapper. "Everyone keeps asking what I'm doing next, but I don't know. I don't want to just drift into someone else's idea of success." I looked at him then, not just as my boss's son or a young man at a crossroads, but as someone brave enough to question the path, someone willing to listen. "You're wise for your age," I said. He smiled soft. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just lucky to be talking to someone who's already walked it." That moment, quiet, full of unspoken weight, settled between us. As the sun lowered through the dusty windows, casting golden streaks across the boxes, he reached out again. Not boldly, just enough to place his hand gently on mine. I didn't pull away. I should have, but I didn't, because something in his touch felt like possibility. And for the first time in years, I wanted to know what that felt like again. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed that moment. His hand on mine, the warmth of it, the way our eyes held each other like a breath waiting to be exhaled. There was nothing rushed about it, no urgency, just recognition, a quiet acknowledgement that something had shifted between us. And yet guilt crept in like a draft under a locked door. Not because I'd done something wrong, but because I didn't feel wrong about it. I was 54. He was 27, maybe 28. Half my age, almost. The son of the man who signed my paycheck. It was foolish, irresponsible, completely out of character for someone like me. And still, I couldn't help but look for him the moment I walked into work Monday morning. He wasn't there. All day, I caught myself glancing at the hallway, listening for his voice. By the end of the day, I told myself I was being ridiculous, that whatever that moment was, it had passed. And maybe that was for the best. But just as I was packing up to leave, I found a small envelope resting on my desk. My name was written on it in neat, slanted script. Inside was a folded note, Come by the music room on the 5th floor after hours. I found something I think you should see. My heart pounded in my chest. The building had once housed a music startup long before my time. The 5th floor was mostly unused now, quiet, forgotten. I should have walked away, thrown the note in the trash, and left it all behind. But I didn't. That evening, after most of the office had cleared out, I took the elevator up. My heels echoed on the scuffed tile floor as I walked down the dim hallway. The music room door was already open. He was inside, standing beside a dusty upright piano. A small desk lamp glowed in the corner, casting warm golden light around the room. The rest was shadow. You came, he said softly. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, more for protection than warmth. What is this, Tyler? He looked at me, not with nerves or boyish charm, but with something steadier, more serious. I found this piano, he said, brushing his fingers along the keys. I remembered what you said about not playing anymore. Thought maybe you'd want to try. I laughed, but it came out thin. It's been 20 years. Then tonight's as good a night as any to remember. I stared at him, at the piano, at this version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. Someone spontaneous, uncertain, and strangely hopeful. And then I walked in. I sat on the bench beside him and let my fingers fall on the keys. At first I could barely remember how to position my hands. The muscle memory was buried but not gone. I played the first bars of a Chopin nocturne, hesitant, soft. He listened quietly, as though he understood what it cost me to bring that music back. When I finished the last note, hanging in the stillness, I turned to him. His eyes were glassy. That was beautiful, he said. No, I said, tears suddenly stinging my eyes. That was me from a long time ago. He reached up, brushed a loose strand of hair from my face, his fingers grazing my cheek. You're still her, he whispered. I closed my eyes, letting the quiet settle over us. I didn't think. I didn't weigh the consequences. I just leaned in because I wanted to. Our lips met, soft and tentative. There was no firestorm, no frenzy, just warmth. A kiss filled with surprise and understanding. When we finally parted, I rested my forehead against his. This is crazy, I whispered. He smiled, touching my hand again. Maybe, but it doesn't feel wrong. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I was too busy trying to remember the last time someone made me feel like I mattered. Not as a mother, not as an employee, just as me. And in that quiet music room, under a golden desk lamp and the hush of old memories, I let that feeling live, if only for a little while. The following days felt like a dream pressed gently against the edges of my reality. We didn't speak about what happened right away. There was no dramatic confession, no breathless promises, just a quiet understanding that something had shifted between us. Neither of us was quite ready to define it. I went back to my routines, morning coffee, reports, checklists, but everything felt different, lighter. Somehow, my reflection in the mirror looked less tired. There was a softness in my face I hadn't seen in years. And then one afternoon later that week, Tyler stopped by my office. Walk with me? He asked. We stepped outside together. The spring breeze carried the smell of freshly cut grass from the park across the street. The sun was low, casting long shadows. We walked without speaking for a while. Finally, he said, I'm leaving town for a little while. The words landed heavier than I expected. Where? Just a few weeks, he said. I have an offer in Seattle. Nothing permanent yet, but I need to see what's out there. I nodded slowly. You should. He looked over at me, his voice softer. I didn't want to go without seeing you. I stopped walking and turned toward him. This, whatever this is, surprised me, I said. You surprised me. He nodded. You surprised me too. I didn't expect to find someone who made me question what I thought I wanted. There was a silence between us, but it didn't feel empty. Tyler, I said, you're at the beginning of your story. You should chase it, all of it. He reached out and took my hand, gently squeezing it. And what about you, Sarah? I looked down at our hands, his young, strong, full of promise. Mine withered, lined, but no less deserving. I think I've spent so much time being what others needed. I forgot who I was outside of all that, I said. You reminded me. A quiet smile spread across his face. We didn't kiss again. There was no lingering goodbye, no dramatic farewell. Instead, he touched his fingers to my cheek one last time. Promise me you'll play again. I nodded, eyes wet. I will, and I meant it. That night, after he left, I pulled the cover off the old digital piano in my den. I hadn't touched it in over a decade. It was out of tune, a little dusty. But as I sat down, placed my fingers on the keys, and closed my eyes, I felt something stir again. Not because of Tyler, but because I was finally remembering myself. He wasn't a mistake. He was a reminder that even in the quietest corners of our lives, something unexpected can awaken us. That we are never too old to feel seen, to be moved, or to rediscover the parts of ourselves we thought were long gone. That night, I played for hours, and for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel alone.